They said he was too kind for his own good, that his generosity would ruin him. But no one knew that the man he helped quietly, night after night, was about to change his life forever. What happened next would shock everyone and reveal a secret no one saw coming. Watch closely, because by the end, you'll see why kindness sometimes saves more than just hearts. It can save lives. Jeremiah Cole's diner looked like a place time had almost forgotten. The neon sign outside flickered weakly, buzzing louder than the few customers who still bothered to come in. Inside, the booths were cracked red vinyl, crumbs still clinging from the morning rush. The air carried the stubborn mix of fried onions, strong coffee, and quiet despair. Behind the counter stood Jeremiah. His shoulders were heavy, his apron frayed, and his hands kept polishing the same spot on the counter. Not for cleanliness, but to keep his mind off the stack of bills waiting in his office drawer. Everyone said the same thing about him. He's too generous for his own good. And maybe they were right. Every night, someone desperate wandered in. Kids with tired eyes, an old woman with shaky hands, or a man whose shoes barely held together. Jeremiah never turned them away. He slid plates across the counter. No questions asked, no money demanded. From the corner booth, whispers floated through the diner. "See, that's why he's broke," one man muttered. "He'll lose this place before winter's done." Another replied with a laugh. Jeremiah heard them. He always did. But he never argued back. Instead, he leaned forward, pouring coffee for a stranger who couldn't even meet his eyes. And then the bell over the door jingled. A figure stepped inside, drenched from the rain. His coat hung heavy, his beard patchy, his eyes sunken deep. He smelled of exhaustion, of nights spent on sidewalks. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. "Sit down, brother. You're freezing." The man lowered himself into a booth, silent, but his gaze locked onto Jeremiah, studying every movement with an intensity that made the air feel heavier than the storm outside. That night, Jeremiah didn't know it yet, but this stranger had just written the first line of a chapter that would change his life forever. What if the man everyone ignored was actually someone far greater? The rain never stopped that week, and neither did the stranger. Every evening, the bell above the diner door would jingle, and there he was, the same ragged coat, the same hollow eyes, the same silence. He never asked for anything, yet Jeremiah always placed a plate in front of him. Eggs and toast one day, a steaming bowl of soup the next. The man barely spoke, but his eyes, they never left Jeremiah. He studied the way Jeremiah leaned forward when customers spoke, the way he slid food to the hungry without hesitation, the way he carried himself even when exhaustion tugged at his frame. From the corner booths, the gossip grew louder. "Look at him," one local sneered, "giving away food to every stray that walks in." "He'll lose this place before the month ends," another added, shaking his head. Even worse, word spread beyond the diner. Suppliers stopped delivering. A truckload of goods never arrived, and when Jeremiah called, the voice on the other end was cold. "Pay what you owe first." Click. Jeremiah stood outside one night, trash bag in hand, overhearing his neighbors whisper under a street lamp. "He's drowning himself. Don't feel sorry for him. He chose this life." For a moment, the words sank deep. His grip on the trash bag faltered. Maybe they were right. Maybe kindness really was just weakness dressed up as virtue. But then, he thought of the hungry children, the mothers with tired eyes, and the silent man inside who ate as though it was the only real meal he'd had in days. Jeremiah took a deep breath, lifted his chin, and went back inside. He would not change. Not now. Not ever. At the counter, the stranger's quiet stare followed him again, steady, unblinking, almost knowing, as if he carried a secret Jeremiah could not yet see. Sometimes the heaviest weight isn't debt, it's doubt. The days dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Jeremiah kept serving, but now it was from scraps. Half a bag of rice, a few wilted onions, a bruised crate of tomatoes he bought cheap from a vendor who pitied him. Still, he turned them into meals, sliding bowls across the counter as though they were feasts. But behind that quiet determination, the pressure mounted. One Thursday morning, the mail landed on the counter with a heavy thud. A thick envelope, stamped in bold red letters. Jeremiah's hands trembled as he tore it open. His chest tightened. Foreclosure. Unless the debt was paid, the diner would be seized within days. He sank onto a stool, thumb tracing the edge of the paper. He wanted to scream, to break, but instead he folded the notice, tucked it into his apron, and went back to cooking. His customers, few as they were, would never see his pain. That evening, the bell jingled again. The same stranger entered, same ragged coat, same quiet steps. He lowered himself into a booth. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. He set down a steaming plate in front of him. The man's hand shook slightly as he picked up the fork, but his eyes softer now. They lingered on Jeremiah with a look that wasn't pity, wasn't hunger. It was recognition, as though he saw something rare in the man who gave everything and expected nothing. And for the first time, it became clear. This wasn't just a beggar wandering in from a storm. This man was watching Jeremiah, studying him, testing him. But why? On the counter, the final notice lay waiting. And tomorrow, the officers would arrive to take everything away. And then, the moment everyone predicted finally arrived. Morning light spilled weakly through the diner's fogged windows when the door swung open, not with the usual jingle, but with a heavy push. Two uniformed officers stepped inside, papers in hand. A man in a stiff suit trailed behind them, clipboard ready, his eyes scanning the diner like a vulture circling prey. "Mr. Cole," one officer asked. Jeremiah nodded, his throat too dry to answer. The words came sharp and official. The diner was being repossessed. He had until the end of the day to vacate. From the booths, whispers cut the silence. "Told you he couldn't last." All that free food finally caught up to him. A few customers shook their heads, almost satisfied to see their predictions come true. Jeremiah gripped the counter so tightly his knuckles turned white. Every whisper burned against his back, but he didn't defend himself. What was left to say? His chest rose and fell, slow and heavy. The officers waited, the suit scribbled notes, and the diner itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, tires screeched outside. Engines rumbled low and steady. Heads turned toward the window. A line of black SUVs pulled up to the curb, their presence commanding, almost ominous. The officer stiffened, unsure what was about to happen, as the diner door swung open once more. The man everyone thought was nothing just changed everything. The diner's door opened again, but this time it wasn't a weary customer or another officer. It was him, the same man who had shuffled in night after night in that ragged coat, only now he was unrecognizable. The tattered clothes were gone, replaced by a sharp-tailored suit that caught the morning light. His beard was neatly trimmed, his posture straight, his presence so commanding that the entire diner fell into stunned silence. Behind him, a team of assistants stepped inside, carrying briefcases and thick folders. Their polished shoes echoed against the old floorboards that had creaked under the weight of broken soles for years. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the officers at the door hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Jeremiah's breath caught in his chest. His rag slipped quietly from his hand to the floor. This couldn't be the same man, could it? And then the truth hit like thunder. The silent stranger, the one Jeremiah had fed without question, the man mocked as a beggar, wasn't poor at all. He was powerful. He was wealthy. He was someone Jeremiah never imagined standing in his little diner. The broken man he had served night after night was a billionaire in disguise. The suited stranger walked forward, each step deliberate, his gaze locked on Jeremiah. He stopped at the counter, studied Jeremiah's face for a long moment, then placed a thick folder between them. The diner held its breath as he pushed the folder closer, his eyes never leaving Jeremiah's. The truth was bigger than Jeremiah could have imagined. The diner was silent, every eye fixed on the man in the suit. He rested his hand on the thick folder, his gaze steady on Jeremiah. Then, in a calm but commanding voice, he spoke. "Mr. Cole, you gave me food when I had nothing. You gave without asking, without judgment. Again and again, even when people told you it would ruin you." Gasps rippled through the room. The customers who once mocked Jeremiah now stared in disbelief. Some shifted uncomfortably, shame heating their cheeks. The man continued, his voice measured, but carrying a weight that silenced the whispers. I wanted to see if that was truly who you were, or just habit. So I disguised myself. I sat here, night after night, and I watched you. You never turned me away. Even when your cupboards were bare, even when your bills stacked higher than your hope, you still chose kindness. Jeremiah's throat tightened. His hands trembled against the counter. I don't understand, he whispered. The man leaned closer, lowering his tone, but every word struck like iron. You gave when you had nothing. That's rare. The diner was frozen. Neighbors who had sneered just days ago sat wide-eyed, their laughter replaced by silence. For the first time, Jeremiah wasn't a fool in their eyes. He was something greater. The suited man pushed the folder across the counter, locking eyes with Jeremiah. Inside, his entire fate waited to be revealed. What Jeremiah found inside changed his life forever. Jeremiah's fingers hovered over the folder, trembling as if it might vanish if he touched it. Slowly, he flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page and widened. Deeds, contracts, every debt, every overdue notice, every threat of foreclosure cleared, paid in full. This diner, the man said firmly, is yours now. No more bills, no more collectors. You're free. Jeremiah's lips parted, but no words came out. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his throat too tight to speak. But the man wasn't finished. He straightened his shoulders, his presence filling the room. I'm investing in this neighborhood, and I want to do it through you. Not only will this diner stand, but I'll fund new locations. Your kindness should spread, not die in silence. The room rippled with gasps. Customers who had once mocked him now leaned forward, eyes wide, their disbelief turning into awe. Jeremiah blinked, fighting back tears that blurred his vision. For so long, he had been told his kindness was weakness, and now it was the very reason he was standing here, given a second chance. The whispers in the diner shifted, from doubt to reverence, as Jeremiah's hand pressed against the folder, realizing his life would never be the same again. And yet, through it all, Jeremiah never changed who he was. Sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks, spilling across the cracked neon sign outside the diner. Inside, Jeremiah stood with the folder still beneath his hand, his chest rising and falling as if he had just woken from a dream. Around him, the same customers who once whispered and mocked now sat in stunned silence. Their eyes carried something new, not scorn, not doubt, but respect. The man in the suit gave a final nod. Men like you don't deserve to sink. They deserve to rise. You've proven that kindness is strength, Mr. Cole. Never forget that. Then he turned, his assistants following as quietly as they had entered, leaving behind a silence so profound it felt holy. Jeremiah blinked away the tears, threatening to spill. His knees felt weak, his hands still trembling, but his heart was steady. For the first time in months, he felt warmth, not just from the sun outside, but from the truth within him. Tomorrow, his diner doors would open again. And just like yesterday, if someone hungry walked in, they'd still find a place at his table, because that was who Jeremiah was, and that was what had saved him. Jeremiah's kindness nearly cost him everything, but in the end, it became the very reason he was saved.